Literature as a form of national therapy. Not a bad idea. Too bad that we happen to have no literature. This is from Zabushko's novel. Zabushko often employs a jagged style which effectively portrays this raving madness overcoming a person submitting themselves to this dangerous task. In her novel, Zabushko attacks her nation's problems with aggression, undertaking sort of catharsis in order to rid it of pain. As she probes deeper and deeper in search of the roots of the evil that entangled her people, she herself becomes snarled by Russian imperial ambitions, the Ukrainian inferiority complex, and an all-encompassing, paralyzing fear that governs her people. Idrik's Wozek is a novel in which sickness and pain figure heavily in defining oneself. During incessant interwoven scenes of non-action, the protagonist is shown to exist almost entirely within his mind and seems to require pain in order to make a connection with his body. Excerpt number 4. But return seemed inevitable, and return meant only pain. Only pain now. Pain now substituted for the whole world. The whole world was pain. He listened and found out that this was not pain at its best. Wozek tries to find an approach, a position through which the whole world would not be pain. Shifting through philosophical systems admixed with 20th century pop culture, trying them on for size, Wozek is unable to find a compatible ideal in this world, and as such has difficulty establishing his own being. The sickness of the Ukrainian intellectual artist is also manifested in the prose of the Desiatniki when these artists are shown to be treading a path of self-destruction, usually abetted by the consumption of alcohol. For example, in the Brovas Burdik, the title character, who is a representative of this lost generation of late Soviet Ukrainian intellectuals, this character spends the last moments of his life in an intoxicated state, having drunk a fatal quantity of cognac. Self-destructive alcoholism is even more present in the prose of Andryczyk and in Moskaleць. The reader of Rekreacji, Andryczyk's first novel, is shown how one of the novel's young poets, Marko, had provoked his wife. This is number 5 in your handout. This is Marko talking about her husband, this poet. He gave me an ultimatum. If I didn't go, he'd get dead drunk in Cheptopia, shit drunk, raving drunk day and night. He would drink all he could get, throw up and drink again until they brought him home all but dead. Marta does end up attending the festival, but Matufyak, along with his other poet buddies, nonetheless begin drinking as soon as they meet up, an activity that constitutes much of the action in the novel. Moscoviada's hero, this is the second Andryczyk novel, Otto, he also drinks throughout his jaunts around Moscow, and he eventually classifies the alcohol in his body in layers. That's number 6. Meanwhile, you mentally conduct a lengthwise autopsy of yourself. This, it seems, will make it easier to concentrate and get to the essence. So then, at the very bottom we have beer, about 3 or 4 liters of a yellow, murky drink, brewed especially for the proletariat. Above it is a warm and red layer of wine. There, tectonic processes are initiated. These are volcanic depths. Next, there is a relatively narrow layer of vodka, rising about halfway up the esophagus. This is a very active layer in a biological sense. At a certain moment, it can become a catalyst for great innovative tendencies. It is, in other words, gunpowder. Above the vodka, closer to the throat, lies Cave N, fortified grape drink. In the event of an eruption, this is the first thing you spew out, like a fountain. It's smelly and brown, like petroleum. And this, in general, is the blueprint of your inner emptiness. We won't mention blood and everything else for now. So here Andryczyk addresses both this prominent position of alcohol in the daily life of a Soviet citizen and the toll it takes on its consumers. The omnipresence of alcohol in Andryczyk's prose is not surprising, given the scenes of revelry that marks this era of festivals that I mentioned in the beginning. However, his protagonist's dependence on alcohol is deliberately presented in a pathetic light. and usually includes self-reflective criticism, as illustrated by the fragment we just read at the very end. Now, the main character in the first part of Moskaletz's novel, Vechidny Med, the characters in this novel, they constitute a small group of Bohemian artists living in Lviv. These men spend their days discussing deep philosophical topics, all while trying to figure out where and with what means to purchase one more bottle of high-proof alcohol. In fact, we rarely see these characters presented in a sober state. Often the scenes in which they are presented are quite humorous, driven by dialogues filled with looping rhetoric. And this is number 7 in your handout. And then out of nowhere, the Nectar Bar rises up, or maybe is created, right in front of them. Sitting by its entrance are a very pale Dem and a very red Yellow. "What's up, Dem, you nut?" yells Bumper. "You want to have a drink?" "I'm buying." Dem doesn't say anything. "He's got to have a drink," calmly explains Yellow. "He's flipped out and hasn't said a word for 3 hours in a row." "Who in a row is going to go to the store?" shouts Bumper. "Are we going to, in a row, save Dem? Or not, you in a row jerks?" "Stop yelling, Bumper," Lord Krishna says quietly. "I'll go, just stop yelling." "Shut up, I in a row command you," says Bumper, becoming frantic. "Give me the dough," Krishna sighs. Bumper gets the dough and starts counting it. There's a lot of dough. He'll come out the 3 bottles of sweet, sweet port from Kisser. Belov and Trotsky glance at one another. Maybe that's a bit excessive, but it's too late. Alcohol has consumed these artists' lives. Today's watering holes and stores selling beer form the topography of Lviv, alongside its 16th century churches, its 15th century fortification walls, and its 14th century cobblestone streets. However, it is only the bars that miraculously appear in front of these artists' eyes as they're strolling through the city. These bars appear and act as snares that prove to be impossible to avoid for these artists. In this novel, hangovers have actually been personified, and they themselves stroll the streets of Lviv. Moskalitz is effective in presenting the severity of these men's sickness in a scene where hallucinations have taken over one of the artist's mind. And this is the final. The only thing Trotsky feared and truly respected was the white squirrel. The white squirrel had a puffy tail and 4 paws, a jittery, well-intentioned animal carrying a crystal shot glass on a silver tray. He tamed it about 5 years ago, but still hadn't gotten his fill of its extraordinary wisdom and companionship. He would often visit Trotsky. It's Trotsky, not Trotsky. This is his nickname. It's not. He would often visit Trotsky in the most unexpected places: in the bathroom, in underground passages, in the streetcar, in bed. Sometimes it would jump up onto the table at the Nectar Bar. Sometimes it would run along the bar in the basement of Under the Tower. Trotsky kept rioting, napping, and sleepily pondering the white squirrel's love for the hangover, until someone vigorously knocked on the streetcar window. Trotsky opened one eye and saw that it was Smetana. Smetana had died 2 years ago, having poisoned himself with antifreeze, and Trotsky was well aware of this, but nonetheless became uneasy.